The Fourth Reich this week on Destructomundo.
Destructomundo. From witnesses to the effect that people who acted as though they were in a kind of trance were killing and eating their victims prompted authorities to examine the bodies of some of the victims. Medical authorities in Cumberland have concluded that in all cases the killers are eating flesh. People they murdered. Repeating this, it is Cumberland, Justice Cumberland, Maryland. Civil defense authorities have told you that murdered victims show evidence of having been partially devoured by their murderers.
Nazis. Hey, we'd like to introduce our guest host this week, and Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Adam is our resident Nazi expert.
I was going to say, find a good way to phrase that.
Yeah, no, I really didn't want to out him as like, yeah, Adam's our closet Nazi.
He's enthusiast.
Yeah, no, we didn't have Chad on the show. Bazing. Chad is our reenactment group Nazi.
Reenactment Nazi.
Yep. Chad actually is part of a reenactment group where he totes a Mauser for the cause.
Yeah, those were the days, weren't they?
I don't know. I wasn't part of that.
I don't know.
But I do know this much. Chopping Nazis is the funnest thing you can do.
Yes. I like killing Nazis. Unfortunately, I currently have to settle for the virtual experience.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's plenty of it. I mean, it's almost gotten to a glut of Nazi shooters.
As far as I'm concerned, you can't overdo it.
No.
I can never kill too many Nazis. I can never get tired of it, but there's something just so...
Right. There's always going to be more.
But they're out. They're beyond the virtual stuff. They're out there, man. There's real ones. They're still out there.
Well, let's start with the end of World War II. And there's Hitler's quote unquote dead, and the Third Reich is over, and the Fourth Reich has yet to begin. There's chaos in Europe. And the organization Odessa, made up of ex-SS members, working to getting those people, those ex-SS members out of Europe, starts up. Working to get them over into...
Get the Nazis out of Europe.
Which is the only safe haven in the world at that time would have been South America, as they had managed to stay out of the war.
Well, Brazil was actually involved in the war, but
but the rest as far as it went.
I know some of them went to Syria. Some of them were piped into the Middle East.
There were some Middle Eastern countries that were safe havens, but
supposedly, I've never really read anything substantiated, but they did help some of the Arab countries try to stamp out Israel after. I don't know if it was actually the 48 war or it was like the subsequent ones.
But that makes sense.
Supposedly there were German ex-Nazi advisors helping out. Was it the Arab League or whatever they called them?
Well, there were SS. There were former SS in the French Foreign Legion fighting in Indochina.
Yeah, and then,
later Vietnam.
And then when they found out that they were all SS guys and kicked them out, then the French started to lose.
Yeah, basically got surrounded, and then we had to come in '58 and help.
See, the French still couldn't do it.
Nope.
Even when they had Nazis working for them.
And then they got basically kicked out in the Republic of Vietnam, Republic of.
Yeah. So obviously there were Nazis made it out of. Well, I guess not. A lot of them even stayed in Europe.
Yeah. If the ones that could hide.
Some came here. They
always seem to end up in Detroit, though. Working for
or somewhere in upstate New York,
right?
But
well, there had been a lot of German migration to South America, starting in the late 1800s.
Yeah. So that's what made it so easy. I mean, there were Germans down there who sympathized with those back home, you know, and like, well, they were all for it. Get them down there, So.
Well, the Germans had tried an inroad on getting Mexico to side with them before the war, before we had entered the war.
Yeah, they tried that in World War I too, though.
And had worked to get the Mexican government to.
They're just so lazy.
Oh boy.
They don't have that German work ethic, do they?
Well, yeah. I guess everybody's lazy when you consider the German work ethic.
Except the Japanese. Which is why they worked so well together.
Yes.
Hard-working sons of bitches.
Sure.
Yeah.
Too hard working.
Well, when you're that motivated. When you're better than everybody, it's easy.
Sure. Well, at least it's not taking place nowadays.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about.
Yes,
well,
it is happening.
I'm just glad that Japan isn't making robots for the war effort. You know what I'm saying?
At least they've given up on their imperial dreams.
Sure.
Well, they're kind of reviving it now.
Well, they want an army.
Yeah.
If you ask the general populace, they want an army.
Yeah, they just want to participate.
They're just
they don't want
tired of writing all those initials for the Japanese self-defense force.
Sure.
Yeah.
The science patrol.
Yeah.
The ones that. When do they get those ray gun things on the truck? That
Sure.
they shoot Godzilla with. They want to take those out.
They want to put into place the stuff that they'd been working out.
They want to get rid of the white helmets and the white gloves that they wear in all the Godzilla.
Yeah. Well, they got tired of the Beastie Boys making fun of them in all their videos. Yeah.
So yeah, we don't have to worry about them. But the Nazis are out there.
Got a lot of gold.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nazi gold. That's what's funding it. You have like Otto Skorzeny, the rescuer of Mussolini during the war. Very high level SS man.
One time most dangerous man alive.
Sure. Scar-faced.
The father of modern special operations.
Yep.
They all
rescued Mussolini with less than 20 men.
Yeah.
In a fortified compound.
There's a great quote from him. There's no substitute for violence of action and volume of fire.
He was like 8 feet tall.
He was a tall man.
He was 8 feet tall, and he once ate an entire cow in 15 minutes. Raw. Washed it down with a crate of champagne. And he had sex with an entire village.
Once I was in Corpus Christi, and I saw an Asian man as an Asian waiter, and he was 8 feet tall.
Yeah, but yes, Otto Skorzeny was big in Odessa. He was also close friends with the Perones.
Yep, he managed to make it to Argentina, train their military, and would make frequent trips back to Europe as an Argentinian citizen.
Before you got miles for that.
Yeah, exactly. And would come back, every time, and was rumored to have been funding Argentina's army or military efforts with possible influence or influxes of Nazi gold.
Sure, yeah.
And if anybody would have known where it was, it would have been Skorzeny, I believe.
It's probably all ended up in Spain.
You think so? I mean, Spain was a harbor for lots of Nazis because you had Franco in charge, and Franco owed a hell of a lot to the Nazis, if anything.
Sure. The Spanish Civil War was their practice field for World War II. So.
Which, yeah. So I assume that some of the Nazi gold could have been contained in Spain after the war. It's hard to say, but yeah, that's. And I mean, Skorzeny's caught hell from the national or from the international press for being who he was and doing what he was doing, and he was very unapologetic.
Yeah, and he was, something of almost like a playboy in a weird sort of way.
Sure. Well, I believe if any of this stuff that has been attributed to the Fourth Reich is possible, it started with that man. The possibility of a scientific effort to keep Hitler's brain alive.
Brain in a jar filled with some sort of uranium.
You see, that's just it. I've said that all along.
Brain in the jar.
I've said that all along. If you have a brain in a jar as an enemy, you are screwed.
Yeah, never. That's one of my fundamental principles of life, never underestimate a brain in a jar.
Hell no. Hell no. Because
Don't
they can
I,
do anything they want to you.
So if you have Hitler's atomic brain in a jar somewhere,
You're screwed.
you're screwed.
Well, if you have it,
Well, I mean, you have it as a, you
Yeah.
know,
It's probably hooked up to the internet by now.
probably. Hitler's jacked into the internet. His brain's hardwired.
He's probably obsessed with Scheisse porn.
I like the Scheisse porn.
He probably has that Stephen Hawking voice, too, because it's hooked up to one of those voice things, you know?
Only would it be like sharp in German? Or would
That's
it
what
be-
my answering machine sounds like. God, I got Hitler for an answering machine.
That could be very well true.
Well, you know, so...
He's,
But they
he's the
can, and they preserved did they, you know, preserve some sort of DNA samples of him for to make the clones?
Yes, exactly. I mean, once you have living tissue or tissue that DNA can be extracted from, then you work on making the Hitler clones. The subject of the famous book Boys from Brazil
Yes.
Well, then if
and movie. Great
If-
Peck.
Hitler really died in Berlin in 1945, then the people who would have his DNA would be the ex-Soviet regime.
Possibly, if they even had Hitler's body, because it was burned
Yeah.
by Hitler's men.
Yeah, but you know, you could still extract DNA from.
Well,
it wouldn't have
Hitler-
to be so incinerated.
Hitler
to turn
may
to dust.
have, like, you know, other tyrannical leaders had, because he was in fear of his life from his own men, it's possible that, you know, and he was afraid of assassination. He may have had doubles. It would not be much of a step to believe that he did have doubles
Yeah.
in order to keep, you know, people from knowing exactly where he was at any given time. And then one of those doubles could have been shot in the head, taken outside, burned to a crisp.
And then
There
he
you
got
go.
on the
And then-
submarine.
and then he got away.
He got onto the.
The submarine in the Oder River and made it to the North Sea.
Well, you know, I mean, they got him to. Yeah, he got to the. You know, he got into the submarine and went to the secret base in Antarctica.
Ah.
That's where they all wound up. Eventually, all the important ones. A lot of them made it to
Close
South.
proximity to
Um,
the Cape Horn.
but there's the secret. There's the secret Nazi base.
No, is it the Cape of Good Hope or the Cape
Which continent are you talking about?
South
Cape
America?
of the Good Hope is on South
That's Africa.
Africa.
Okay, yeah, it's Cape Horn then.
In Tierra del Fuego.
Yeah.
That's South America.
Yeah.
But no, there's a secret Nazi base at New Schwabenland. That's where they, and then like, come on, don't you guys know your friggin' conspiracies, man?
You gotta enlighten us, man.
Okay,
I
there
thought
was
the
this.
Nazi UFOs were in the Arctic.
There's a opening to the Hollow Earth
That's
at
the
each
Hollow
pole,
Earth, man. Yeah.
and the Nazis were in fact in league with the Hollow Earthers, and they used Hollow Earther technology to build the flying saucers that were the Foo Fighters, right?
Yeah.
That the guys saw. That was Nazi UFOs built using Hollow Earther technology. But when the Nazis realized, it goes back to all the stuff from the late 30s, like the Lost Ark, Holy Grail expeditions, when they went to Tibet to train with the Tibetan black magic. I can't remember it's the Bon, I think the Bon religion, which is like it predates Buddhism and Taoism in Tibet. It's like the Tibetan.
It's the root of it.
But it's a lot of, there's like the sort of dark wizard black magic dudes that
a
the Nazi
lot
hunt.
like the ancient religion of like the
and those guys are linked to like to Himmler and the Wavelsberg stuff and the weird stuff at Wavelsberg Castle where they had the shrine where they were going to put in the 12 knights of the SS, and they had the special room where they were going to put the Grail when they found it and all that supposed stuff. But supposedly there's this story that they sent this. They actually did send an expedition to Antarctica sometime in the late 30s. And then there's this conspiracy theory type thing that there's this big base down there that they built. This was like their secret last refuge. And so they had this secret base there, and then like late, it's basically throughout, the first part of 1945, leading up to the end of the war, when they realize it's done, they've started to ship all this secret stuff down there in these special submarines. And supposedly there's all these documents that say, so-and-so saw this manifest on this sub, and it had all this weird shit, and they were shipping scientists down there and all the secret shit that they built at the end of the war, including the flying saucers that they got from the Hollow Earthers.
Yeah.
So there's a secret Nazi base at New Schwabenland, which is, I think, perhaps adjacent to Queen Maud Land and perhaps the Ross Ice Shelf, but I'm not sure. I don't know my Antarctic geography
Yeah, I
too
know
well.
the Weddell Sea, and then you have
But anyway, the
Peninsula.
big culmination of all this, which is somewhat linked to something that actually is real, in 1947 there was a huge U.S. Navy operation to Antarctica called Operation High Jump. And that's real. And one of the senior officers in Operation High Jump, he wasn't all, but Nimitz was there. Nimitz might have been actually the man in charge. But one of the senior officers was Byrd, because they were going to Antarctica, and Byrd had obviously been. And officially and ostensibly it was this big operation to carry out aerial mapping of Antarctica. And mostly along the coastlines, because they went in summertime when there was a minimal amount of ice, and you could actually map what was actually the permanent coastline and not just a bunch of ice where you can't tell what's real and what's never. Anyway, it was this huge task force of like 13, 14 ships and several thousand people, because obviously that's a big thing to undertake, all this stuff. And they were building some semi-permanent facilities, I guess one of those like Little America type things, stuff. But anyway, the conspiracy thing is that it was a huge covert operation to assault the Nazi fortress in Antarctica. And that Byrd actually led this combat force down there.
Great movie.
I know, Operation High Jump. But yeah, that's that there was actually this secret Nazi fortress down there, and that Byrd led this cross-Antarctic combat force to assault this Nazi fortress buried in the ice down in Antarctica, which is where they had stockpiled all the cool, weird, top secret shit.
they're just weather balloons.
But
they're Nazi.
But I mean, obviously, high jumps was a real thing. But you can, and then it caused a big stir with a lot of South American countries, because they thought it was like sort of U.S. imperialism.
Sure.
We roll in this big, and it was tied to a lot of. There were a lot of rumors that we were down there, like prospecting for uranium and shit. Obviously, that was a big deal, in 1947. But
it's not necessary. The United States has one of the largest uranium reserves in the world.
So, but it caused a big stir at the time. But we were just saying, we're just doing aerial mapping. But it's a big conspiracy thing that's where the Nazi elite really went to at the end of the war, to this secret base in Antarctica, and
I'm surprised they haven't tied that into the whole Falklands War. There was Argentina trying to hook back up, but
they needed the Falklands because they were drilling underneath the ocean and coming up in the Falklands.
Well, or the Falklands were just just like that one piece of British imperialism down in their area, and they had to get rid of it to link up.
But see, it's weird.
Well, they wanted to buy sea land,
save the last of the old
which is
guys.
that place off the coast of England that it's that abandoned World War II platform that they had, and then
it's like a radar platform or anti-aircraft.
Yeah, and they abandoned it, but it was picked up by this guy, and he started the country of Sealand. And then, oddly enough, he got a call from some Germans that wanted him to they wanted to store some stuff in Sealand, and they wanted to. He came to Germany to talk to him, and while he was in Germany, his son was there, and they came and took over Sealand, and he had to.
We invade your Sealand.
Yeah, well, they took over Sealand, and they kicked his son out.
Technically, they annexed it.
Yeah, they annexed
because it was historically it had always been there.
Right. Well, it wasn't the German government; it was some German industrial.
Well, the people of Sealand are so close to us, really. Traditionally, we've always been one and the same. We just need more living space.
Yeah. We need more living room.
So we need your sea land, but
yeah, we're not in the news bunker tonight. We're in Derek's Lebensraum.
My space station.
Yes.
Space Station Delta 2.
That's right. We are in the space station tonight with our guest Adam, and again we were talking about Nazis.
So I think that if Hitler's atomic brain is still active and plotting the Fourth Reich, it's
controlling Odessa, and Odessa is
I think it's in the secret fortress in Antarctica, near the South Pole, near the South Polar opening to the Hollow Earth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder whatever happened to Borman.
Nobody knows.
Yeah. He probably died some really lame, boring death somewhere. Yeah. He probably just went somewhere.
Mengele. Mengele died of old age.
Yeah, he died in the 80s.
Yep. Mengele was, he even had a pseudonym that was known, Mendeleev. And he died in, I forget. He was in Venezuela, I believe.
Venezuela. That's where Eichmann. He was in.
Well, his
Argentina.
son had gone to visit him several times before his death, and then after his death, revealed to the world that he had died.
Yeah, and then they not too long.
Well, you couldn't reveal that he had died before his death,
or unless he wanted to lie about it.
They wouldn't do that.
No, I don't. Yes, I mean because Mengele, according to the book Boys from Brazil, was in charge of making sure that the Hitler clones were put in the proper homes.
Gotta recreate the childhood conditions.
That's right. He had to make sure that the clones were put in the proper families, but then they were going to pull the plug on the entire operation because they felt like that people were getting too close.
Because a couple of old Jews were sticking their nose in.
Trying to stop the whole thing.
Trying to stop the whole thing.
That's right.
Because Larry Oliver.
Larry Oliver.
As, in a very thinly veiled tribute to Simon Wiesenthal.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier for the uninitiated. Yes, Larry Oliver.
Yes.
Yeah, played a tribute to Simon Wiesenthal, the famous Nazi hunter. What a job. Man, I have a friend named Sam, and he's Jewish, and he was going to, go to Israel and basically make you join the army for a year when you become Israeli citizen. It's a mandatory service deal. And we were like, man, we need to get you trained so you can join the Mossad, so we can go on Nazi hunting expeditions with you. You can call us in. It can be like your strike team in America. Because that'd have been the best.
When you need
ever.
your Gentile backup.
Yep.
We need someone who's we need someone less ethnic.
But they're pretty old now. Yeah, if you need to get into a place and they're going, no.
They're not going to let a Jew in here.
No, yeah.
We need some. Call in Gentile squad. We show up in chinos and polo shirts.
Sure.
Hey, man, how's
like
it going?
Drunken frat boys. Getting the
Far
club.
out, man. What's going on here?
I'm not sure I can do drunken frat boy. I don't look like a frat boy at all.
Oh, that's funny.
We'll just get you a Hawaiian shirt.
I have a Hawaiian shirt, and I still don't look like a frat boy when I wear it.
But even, the Nazis are all old, but you don't want to underestimate
Well, their
them.
children are still out there, and they can clone themselves. Obviously, they've done it with Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
So Hitler's in the homes of these civil servants that have much younger wives, and the wives are kind of browbeaten, and Mengele has to go and
they have to engineer the sudden
death of the
violent death of the father.
Yep.
At a certain age of the boy. They're trying to basically recreate Hitler's childhood for each of his clones, thinking that the conditions... I guess it's sort of a classic sort of in what is it, the
nurture versus nature?
Yeah, the environment versus heredity. That's the thing, yeah. Is it, if Hitler had grown up anywhere else, would he have still been Hitler, or was it because of the conditions in which he grew up?
That's right.
So obviously they're on the side of environment.
What about all the outside influences, like the end and defeat of Germany in World War One and the rise of communism?
Well, of course, those matters had to be taken place, but I think it was part of a grander scheme that Mengele had in mind. I mean, he was approaching the first real step in Hitler's life towards his becoming who he was, and that's the death of his father. I believe he hoped to live long enough to be able to, because I believe that he was 12 when his father died, 12 or 13. He was in his mid-teens, close to his mid-teens, and he wouldn't have had much longer before he would have been of an age to where he would have been able to participate in a conflict that may have been part of a grander scheme that Odessa would have had in order for him to be put into a war situation, possibly lose, and then later to become the person that Hitler was, at least in the 20s, where he was part of the Nazi Party, which wouldn't have been hard for them to get going. Nazi Party even exists today. You
can go to AmericanNaziParty.com.
Yep.
It's a really lame website. It's really just a bunch of white power bullshit.
Well, of course. You can join the American White People's. No, the American Socialist White People's Party.
It's pretty lame.
Illinois Nazis. I hate Illinois Nazis.
I thought the American White People's Party was just a Republican Party.
Ooh, zing! Oh yeah.
That sounds. See, that's the stuff I usually say.
Sure.
But
Democrats are commies.
They're
Works like that.
Yeah. No, I don't think we have to worry about those so-called American Nazis. They're not part of the Fourth Reich.
No, they're kind of,
They're just like
I mean, obviously. I mean, and what really strikes me as odd is skinheads' behavior is so much more like the SA than anything else, and we all know what happened to the SA.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say. They would eventually...
They got kicked out for being too violent and rowdy and drinking beer all the time, and Ernst Röhm got he was buggering kids, and
they had their little island down south.
Sure,
little party island.
And then they got thrown out, and I just don't understand why they would behave like that. I'm gonna shave my head and wear red suspenders and white laces and kick the crap out of who I think is different than I am.
Mm-hmm. I fucking hate people that are different than me.
I mean, you'd think that if anybody wanted to be a Nazi, they would go get a leather trench coat and an officer's cap and a monocle.
Colonel Klink.
Exactly.
All dressed like Hauptmann Zessler from Where Eagles Dare.
Exactly.
I think it'd be funny if they all had the little mustaches. That'd be awesome.
They all grew a Hitler mustache.
Right? Nobody ever does that. I mean, as much as they love Hitler, they're like, I ain't doing that mustache.
And Hitler had skater hair anyway.
Sure, he had that flip over,
And so did
Squeeb.
So
he had
Himmler.
It's like Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Himmler did Tony Hawk guy. His hair all over to the side, like Tony Hawk in the early days. He doesn't have it like that anymore.
When he had the bangs, he had skater bangs. Yeah.
So Hitler had skater bangs.
So
you think that Hitler, when he was growing up, because he's cloned and stuff, and he would have been in the early '80s and stuff like that. You think he'd have been a skater?
I don't know. He was an
with
artist.
That hair.
He probably would have listened to the Smiths.
Well, I mean, yeah,
I know he totally had a journal.
Totally. I mean, I bet
today
now
he'd have the worst blog ever, dude.
Hitler is Hitler is on LiveJournal and he's into emo.
Oh yeah, he would totally be that guy.
Yeah, because Hitler is totally emo.
Yeah,
he's vegetarian.
Yes,
he doesn't drink. He's like ex-Hitler X.
Yes, and nauseatingly sensitive about everything. Yes, and every bad thing that ever happened to him, he'd go home and tell his journal about it.
Oh my God.
Yep, I think we've hit it's a moment of declaration. Hitler was emo.
Yep.
He may have been the original.
I think he was.
Hitler may have possibly been the original emo. Sensitive vegetarian artist. Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
What a legacy.
No
All
wonder
these
I
years
hate
later.
those guys.
I told you, I fucking hate Nazis. All these years later, what a legacy. As if the Holocaust wasn't bad enough.
Sure.
He had to leave all that. Man.
Wow.
Oh, we've had a moment here.
I know.
It's like an epiphany.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like an epiphany. Suddenly it all makes sense.
Hitler was emo.
Yep.
You heard it here first.
I knew he was, one of the most, one of the least popular individuals of modern history.
Sure. And that's how to do it.
But then you had to throw emo on it. But anyway. So, if, who is the Fourth Reich today?
I
Where are
believe it would have to be either the minions left behind from World War II are getting so close to being like even the ones that would have been in their early 30s during the war.
Sure, they're old now. Yeah.
Are going to be like,
But it's a family.
90 years old
it is,
almost.
for lack of a better term, it's a family business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they were all the people who were just getting indoctrinated
Well, that's what
into
I'm
the
saying.
Hitler-Jugend.
Either they cloned themselves or they raised families, which we know to be true. That they made,
or they had their
the ones that made it
brains
to South
transplanted
America.
into super powerful
Robots?
robotic chassis.
Nazi robots?
I think the forces of good are doing that in South Korea with that Einstein robot.
Well, yeah, they have the Einstein's brain was saved, and I think Einstein knew that Hitler's brain was saved, and he knew that if I don't
And he
save
knew that
my
someday
brain,
that they would have to fight for the fate of mankind.
Exactly.
They're going to be like,
Einstein bot fights Hitler bot.
yeah, it's going to be like the Transformers.
Right on.
Yep.
Well, what does Einstein transform into?
I think Einstein can transform into
A Merkava tank.
Sure.
When Hitler turns into a Volkswagen.
Man, that's
With
just
Panzerfaust for arms, just
that'd be
blam.
rad. Oh,
Have you ever
man.
played? Well, I mean, there's
We could get-
Wolfenstein, man.
Right on.
Wolfenstein.
Wolfenstein combines everything that's cool into one single video game.
Yes. You've got
it's
Nazis.
Well, no, it doesn't have
zombies.
robots. It doesn't really fully have robots, but they do
But-
have those semi-cyborg guys.
Yes, you had the original Wolfenstein had Hitler with a chain gun in his chest, and he was.
And there's those weird those like Ubersoldaten guys that are like lightning-powered cyborg dudes.
Yeah, they sort of harnessed dark magic and wound up with a
Yeah.
bunch of Nazi zombies.
It's weird. It's it's World War II game, but with all the weird. So you got like 90% of the books that I've read about the Nazi stuff are all the weird Nazis and the occult conspiracy. Woo, Mazel Tov.
Yes. It's our beer, ladies and gentlemen. We are drinking
We popped
two types of Belgian beer tonight.
in a tribute to the Nazis.
In a tribute to the Nazis
we're
for the weekend they spent in Belgium.
For the best 3-day weekend of the war. That was Belgium.
We're drinking Pirate with two A's. It's P-I-R-A-A-T.
It's pirate.
We couldn't decide whether or not there were actual Belgian pirates or not, though.
Because we
Should
eventually...
be at least one.
We weren't, because
probably
Belgium
called-
wasn't even a country really during the
I guess... I
They'd
don't know.
probably
time
like
of
say,
Thomas Drake and
go get the Walloon.
or
And
Sir
then
Francis
go get it.
Drake, rather, not Thomas Drake.
Sir Francis Blake.
Sir Francis. Yes, Sir Francis Drake.
Where were we? We were discussing...
The video game.
Wolfenstein, yes.
Yeah.
Man, I wish that Mortar game had been better.
Yeah, I like Mortar. The beginning of the game was awesome.
See, that's
But it just
the thing is like...
digressed because you had to go forward in time.
It's so... That's what see, I'm currently playing Call of Duty 2. It's just... I mean, you could play the same fundamental format of a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a first-person shooter, right? Why is it so much better when I get to kill Nazis?
I don't know. I mean, I think Nazis were really built to shoot at.
I mean, I could play the same game.
Maybe it's because
I could be, positive energy bot fighting the negative energy bots.
Maybe it's because
Why is it better when I'm killing Nazis?
we're the sons.
Because of Hogan's Heroes.
We're really.
Is that what it goes back to?
We're the sons and daughters of an era.
Well, it's the unquestionably, it's the greatest campaign against evil in modern history.
Yeah.
And it is the single greatest global conflict, at least that we ever know of.
That has ever taken place, sure.
If you believe, quote unquote, history. It's just, I guess they're just so, like, it's just so hard in any way to be sympathetic about the whole thing, you know?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
You're just like, it's so unbelievably, it's the greatest campaign against evil. So, and obviously, we grew up watching it all as black and white newsreel footage and some kick-ass movies from the 60s.
And the little plastic guns of Navarone and not action figures, but toy soldiers.
Yeah,
Sure.
you like that stuff. So it's like, it's this, now it's as close to the real, it's as close to really killing Nazis as we've come yet.
It was the age of heroes and the age of villains, It was very cut and dry. It was very.
But the strange
good
thing is,
versus
like,
evil,
yeah,
right.
it's so clear cut as to what was going on, and yet it's so strange because the heroes of it all are like, it's all that G.I. Joe stuff. It's just the regular guys. It's the regular guys going over there to get the job done. And it's the bad guys that are all these crazy, weird, nutball, cartoonish, over-the-top freak motherfuckers. You look at the origins of the Nazi Party, all the weird, the occult shit going all the way back to, the early 20s and the Thule Society and these, like, weird, pseudo-weird occultist, spiritualist, nutball motherfuckers that were were for the most part well-to-do and well-educated. But spiritualism was a big fad at the time. I'll grant them that. There were a lot of people that got into that stuff looking for something. Like I guess nowadays they have Scientology. You've got money and influence, but you still don't have the sense of personal satisfaction and peace, But anyway, it's the same thing. It was, a lot of spiritualism. If you were poor and all you cared about was trying to find your next meal, you didn't really have a whole lot of time to stop and think about the meaning of life.
No, but if somebody was giving you something that you needed, and they also had a message to give
the
you
origin
at the
of all,
same time.
the origin of all, that spiritualism was very popular among, like, the well-to-do and the aristocrats. So you had all these, like, German aristocrats, and they're meddling in all this stuff because it makes them feel special or sophisticated or something, and all that stuff that was the origin of so much of it, and the stuff that. Once they came into power, they downplayed a lot of that stuff.
Well, yeah, because it's the method of how they got the power. That's why they got rid of the SA.
And then you've still got guys like Himmler who, throughout the whole thing was still believed in all that stuff. And the stuff with Babelsberg Castle and, like, the shrine to the Knights of the SS, and he supposedly believed himself to be a reincarnation of Heinrich.
Yeah, it was one of the
Heinrich the First or something like that.
The Holy Roman Emperor.
Yeah, and all that stuff, and all that weird. There's a lot of that that Teutonic, like, nature, that Volk stuff of, like, the country folk and the simple life and this kind of that spirit of Wotan shit.
There was that earlier.
Well, like everything else, it had a strange dichotomy that didn't make sense. It was like this mechanized, modern state that was also at the same
somehow
time
idealized,
trying
like,
to become an agrarian.
Idealized that simple country folk that was, like, the purest and simplest of people, and yet they were, like, cutting edge technology and highly sophisticated, and took that sort of mechanization and streamlining of things to such an unbelievable level.
Well, sure.
Which is the weird thing. And you look at it, and it's like, and there's so much science applied to everything. If you look at, like, the,
or quote unquote science.
Yeah, but in there's pseudoscience too. But there's stuff like, if you look at, like, how really precisely, like, with Goebbels and, like, the propaganda stuff, and, like, the way it was, what we would now recognize largely as, like, marketing.
Yeah.
The way things were, like, analyzed and studied, and, like, you need to do this, and you need to look like this, and you need to show this because this is what, it's like marketing and demographic strategy, and you've got to sell stuff to people. You've got that where it's, like, really seems logical and kind of concise and clear-headed.
Sure.
And then it's mixed with like all the weird, like crazy shit.
Well, that's what a lot of people said about the German people is when the war was lost, it's like they came out of a daze.
Yeah.
It's like that they had been there and they had done the things that they did and they knew it, but they were like, how did this all take place?
And there's
it's
so much
like they didn't know.
There's so much weird stuff there.
Or they didn't want to know.
Or the the spell was broken, so to speak, with the death of Hitler, or the supposed death.
But yeah,
of
you
Hitler.
mix like all that stuff that's actually like seems it's very like concise technical science, like being applied in like a very cold and deliberate way, and then you mix that with like all this weird, flaky, just bizarre shit, and you're like, how the fuck
Yeah, that was large. That wasn't totally Himmler, but he was the one who was responsible for all that. They always say like, well, they always call him like a failed chicken farmer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's because he was pre-Nazism. He was into this. It wasn't Nazism technically, but it was pretty much the same thing. But it was a whole blood and soil thing, and they were like, well, the only way we can save our race is to get back to the land and be peasants.
Yeah.
And apparently all his chickens died or something. I don't know.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Well, moving towards like a Fourth Reich from where we're at right now in the beginnings and the mechanisms of the Third Reich, where do you see like the methods of the Third Reich connecting to the methods of the Fourth? I mean, you have so many like things in pop culture that are there, such as like Wolfenstein. That you have like the Nazi.
Well, I think
magic.
That's what I mean. I think it's so strange that
magic.
It's so strange that all these years later, it's still such a strangely powerful cultural entity.
Yeah, I mean, you have like Hellboy with the
I mean, it's so
Hellboy was basically a demon brought up from this place in a dimension, in order to destroy the world, and was released by Nazis.
Fucking Nazis.
After World War II.
And Rasputin, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Rasputin.
Yeah.
I don't know. Will the Fourth Reich necessarily be like a German racialist thing?
No,
or will it?
I think it'll be
I'm thinking more corporate.
Yeah, I was gonna say it'll be a thing of its time, as the Third Reich was, a product of its time.
A reaction to the loss in the war and with the inherent like anti-Semitism of Germany at the time, and obviously anti-communist. That's one of the big things.
Yeah. So I mean, it'll be very, it's a very different thing.
Well, it needs to have
for a very different.
Well, that's
world.
what the brand of socialism that the Nazis held was, that there needs to be money to be made.
Yeah.
But it needs to be controlled by the government of how that money is made. It's like, we want you to be able to make your product, and we want you to be able to be rich for making it. We want you to have your employees make money to do it. But we want to supply you with the contract that allows you to be able to make your product. Basically, we want to push your product on the people, and if they don't want it, well, then that's all they got. That's how National Socialism worked.
National Socialism.
And companies thrived because of it. I mean, look at the Krupps.
Well, the Krupps were pretty big long before that.
Well, yeah, but they made a ton of money during the war.
What if you look at like
and Ferdinand Porsche went to jail, for using slave labor. And then when he came out, his kids had made him a company that's still around as the finest automobile makers in the world.
That was French vindictiveness.
French vindictiveness?
Yes. The French wanted to put him in jail.
I wonder what.
Well, he built the Tigers. I mean, he built some of the best tanks.
They would have been the best tanks if they had not been rushed through production.
Well, that's the thing about war, though. You really can't just go. I mean, they were developing,
and that's proof that he was just more of a brilliant engineer.
Well, that's the thing.
I mean, he wanted good tanks.
People don't know.
They wanted to kill people.
We defeated Germany in World War II at the height of production. Like, they were not beaten down and didn't have anything left when we defeated them. They were at the height of production. By the time we moved into the Ruhr, which is the region in Germany where all of the factories were making all of this stuff. They were at the height of what they were building. Like
No,
they had,
not all of it. There was
they had made jets. You know, they had like a whole bunch of stuff that like nobody had anything in the works to build.
They moved a lot of that stuff underground.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But there were
Had the
big
factories in
that.
the Hartz Mountains.
And so much of that stuff came over to the U.S. in the form of
Operation Paperclip.
Yep, and that's a lot of the guys came over with it.
Yep. V2s.
And I want to know what happened to that
Dornberger.
synthetic gasoline factory that they found.
Yeah, yeah.
But Operation Lusty was the one where they brought the ME-262s.
Yeah.
Brought all the jets and stuff back in the 163, the Comet. That was Operation Lusty.
193?
193, perhaps.
But, of course, von Braun.
Yeah, von Braun and Walter Dornberger, that was Operation Paperclip, was when we brought in all the the heavy water atomic bomb dudes.
Probably a ton of just the technicians.
Yeah, just a lot of guys you don't know.
And the Nazis had their atomic bomb program in the works before we did. However, the way that Hitler had the system working out, he had scientists in competition with each other. And so instead of sharing information, they kept it to each other in separate groups. And he did have heavy water facilities in like Norway, trying to, develop the way that they could compile of the uranium in order to make plutonium. And they were working on the bomb, but they weren't successful in how they were doing that. We got everybody together, put them in one place.
Yeah, and said, make a fucking bomb.
Sure, that's exactly
all you
what
friggin'
they did.
eggheads, get your hands off your dicks and make a fucking bomb.
Yeah, I wonder if they had made one. Obviously, they couldn't get it to America.
No, they would have done.
Well,
I think they would have just done Moscow.
I don't know, man. There's all that
England
stuff
would
about
have
the
been-
America bomber, that
Yeah.
prototype
there-
America bomber that supposedly could have hit New York.
Actually, the Italians came way closer to developing
But
a
if
bomber.
they,
It was a seaplane, and they would hook up with a.
but think about it. Had
not
they
a
been
U-boat,
able
but-
to nuke England, D-Day couldn't have happened. The supply chain would have been broken at its source.
Well, yeah, but we could still gone through with like Operation Dragoon and.
But see, the thing
South
is
France.
like, but I think if they'd had one, I think it's much more likely they would have hit us. Just for like the psychological effect.
Well, possibly, but
Because there's, like I said,
I
that
don't know.
that prototype, supposedly, they had that design.
Psychological effect is one thing, but practical effect is another. And if they'd have taken out England and bombed London,
But see, that's what we did when we had when we had 2 atomic bombs.
but Hitler had already proved that he wanted to make a psychological effect on England anyways. He wanted to get them out of the war by bombing them
But did it work?
where they lived. Well, no. But an atomic bomb would have done it because there wouldn't have been anybody left to bitch.
He would have taken out what?
London.
Maybe. No, wouldn't have leveled the whole city.
Well, no, but it would have taken enough people out to where there wouldn't have been much left.
I don't think it would have crippled England.
Possibly
that's
not.
the thing.
Morale-wise, it probably would, especially if he got the.
But I
royals.
believe
I
it
mean,
would
if
have
you-
been the
if you've
straw
got,
that broke
you
the
know-
camel's back. I mean, we almost lost
if you've got like
the European
that's the- I
campaign
mean, that's,
by
you know,
taking care of the spots in like Peenemünde, where we went to stop the V2s
Yeah.
because a lot of the Operation Market Garden was to get us in position to take out a lot of those bomb sites or the missile sites, and I mean that's what they wanted done.
We also needed a port.
We did need
deep water port.
We did need ports, but the English people wanted that done. But that's neither here nor there. We're actually trying to focus more on where that would have ended up today had they been successful.
I don't think it would have changed the course of the war, really, ultimately.
To where they would have actually won.
I think it would have changed.
You mean if they'd had an atomic bomb?
Yeah, if they had one and used it, it might have changed the peace after the war, after we beat them, because I think the Soviets would have been in charge of more of Western Europe than they were.
The Soviets might have made it all the way to the Atlantic.
Yeah,
So,
well,
but-
they would have at least gotten to the Rhine, so they
Yeah.
would have had all of Germany.
But if the Fourth Reich is to succeed in this day and age,
It's going to be corporate, man.
It's going to be a corporation.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And
it's
it's
like
not
because
going to come slinging the same
you know,
things. They're not
no.
going to raise the swastika
because I mean, like I
that
said,
was
it'll
sold
be a
and-
Reich for the modern world. It's that's the battlefield of today. It's all fucking money, more so than ever. I mean, it's like it'll be a corporate thing because that's where the power is. Power comes from the money.
Nazi gold funding the corporation of tomorrow that's going to bring the...
So are there strange multinationals out there that...
Daimler-Benz is talking about opening up a bank in America.
Okay. Well, there's Deutsche Bank,
Yeah.
which is, one of the largest banks in the world for any kind of
Yeah, and then there's
corporate funding.
the 3M Corporation.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a German company, rather. There are a lot of firms in Germany that had, multinational interests before World War II. Krupp being one of them. But yeah, I mean, there was the
IG Farben.
IG Farm,
Bayer.
Yeah.
Bayer, yeah.
Bayer goes way back.
Even Mengele. Mengele is a farm equipment company.
I thought they were a department store down
I
there.
thought they were a farm equipment.
There's something down in South America called Mengele, isn't it?
Well, in Germany, they were
okay.
Traditional.
they were a farm equipment
Yeah,
company.
there's like
But,
a store chain in Argentina that's called...
But yeah, IG Farben and Bayer, like what we know for Bayer aspirin. That's a very old school.
And, I mean, it's mostly like... here it's mostly office products and blank tapes, but 3M is a huge corporation.
Yeah.
And they're based in Germany somewhere.
Sure. I mean, they're the world's third largest economy behind Japan and the United States. Well, the United States, Japan, and Germany. And now it looks like China, which
Yeah.
we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, they're a weird...
the Chinese connection.
The Chinese. But,
But yeah, that's probably what we're going to see. Is we're going to see a corporation.
And Hitler's atomic brain is in a
Is in
fortress
charge.
somewhere in Antarctica running the whole thing.
That's right.
Via the
Behind
internet.
He's pulling the strings.
I still think it's the Gnomes of Zurich.
See,
The
there
Swiss,
you go.
the Swiss chocolate
I mean,
cartels.
that's we left that out.
Swiss banking.
The real holders of Hitler's gold
were the
Nazi gold.
Swiss and their pseudo-neutrality.
Sure,
Hundreds and hundreds of years of pseudo-neutrality.
Goes back to
stuffed
like
all the
the
Nazi
1400s.
gold into Switzerland, and then
When they were
moved
neutral
it out
and
a
yet
little bit
supplying
at
the
a time.
mercenaries that fought every war in Europe.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and yet we were we're neutral, and yet Swiss mercenaries fought every war, fought the bulk of the frontline combat in every war. But yes, the Gnomes of Zurich, the Swiss chocolate cartels.
Yeah, I think that's actually probably the thing. I mean, if anything, those who would detract from our statement saying that the Nazis are still around, trying to propagate the Fourth Reich, might even admit to the fact that the Gnomes of Zurich might have held on to enough gold that nobody claimed in order to be able to fund their own ends
Yeah.
and push their own agendas from unclaimed Nazi gold.
Oh, I
Plus,
suppose it's possible.
Nobody really knows what's happening under those mountains.
No,
Nope.
It's a top secret facility.
that's right. Still, they say that every bridge in Switzerland is
Rigged with explosives.
ready
Supposedly,
to go.
supposedly there's like storehouses of arms all over the place.
They can hold like 80% of their population underground for a year. So.
Yeah.
That's what you get when you have a super small country that's super rich.
Mm-hmm.
That they're able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you have a country the size of Pennsylvania, basically,
I think it's smaller.
it may even be smaller than that.
So
It's not very
if the
large.
Fourth Reich is in many ways different than the Third Reich, what is their ultimate? Is their ultimate goal is presumably still the same?
I would believe so. Destruction of Israel, because of the
And so
Jewish
we're
connection.
assuming to strip it all down, like basically
world domination.
they want to run things because they think they're better than everybody else,
Sure,
and it's their
Übersoldaten.
and they're the ones that are best fit to run things.
Yes.
and then certain people are worthy to be their subjects, but then the Jews just need to be gone.
Well, the destruction of the Jews has been their goal from Hitler. Basically using that, I don't know if it was a scapegoat so he could focus power, or he seemed to be intent on the destruction of the Jews to the point where he was actually pulling people out of the front.
He didn't make that up. It was,
Anti-Semitism runs really long and deep,
but he pushed it, as policy.
Well, yeah, to
the point where it was
anti-Semitism was throughout.
But even when it was costing him more on the front lines, he was still pushing it. And the thing is, nowadays, if you look to the Middle East, and I know that this has been going on since time immemorial in biblical times, all the way back to Abraham and his sons and stuff, but you've got
all the way back to when they made that stuff up.
Sure. Well, you got a lot going on in the Middle East, all aimed at Israel. And Israel, although they have less Jews than New York City, is still the bastion of Hebrew influence
it's
in the world. So it's Israel, of course.
Yeah,
and there is a lot of hatred towards Israel.
I guess it's what it represents.
And a lot of oil money, that could be, there might be
spent buying. They could be spent on the white slavery market buying college girls.
Well, yeah.
At least the Sultan of Brunei was spending his money wisely.
You make a valid point.
He was buying gold toilets and college girls, right? I want blonde college girls with a lot of titties. See, he didn't care about Israel. He was filthy rich on oil, and he bought solid gold toilets and some blonde bimbo college girls.
But they could have been Nazi gold toilet.
And he could have been piping it into the destruction of Israel.
I still think Hitler's brain is in a jar someplace in South America.
I think it's in the fortress in Antarctica.
Well, possibly.
I think he's jacked into the internet and he's controlling the whole thing.
He's been
there's a bunch of friggin' hollow.
Quiet about all this. Liechtenstein.
Oh, that's right. Our friends in Liechtenstein.
Oh, they're no friends of mine.
Well, to be a city-state, that's just a strange thing altogether. Principality.
Yep.
What does a count anyway?
Count?
What do you? Well, yeah. Well, there is the whole
So there's if
Nazi zombie.
Liechtenstein
Nazi
is a principality, isn't it?
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
But is there a prince?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was at one point it was
kind of like Monaco, but
yeah. Well, technically,
but they didn't have a race.
No, or they're not on
gambling.
Or Grace Kelly.
Nope.
Or beachfront property.
No.
They got a lot of skiing.
Okay, you have ski resorts in Liechtenstein.
Yeah. Well, they have ski resorts in Monaco. All you gotta do is go up in the mountains.
Yeah, they got it all in Monaco. Casinos.
Yeah, they do. Oh my God.
Riviera.
Yep.
They have ski resorts in Monaco.
I believe so. In the mountains.
I think it's
awfully small.
Well, they probably have
think
day
they would.
trips to the French Alps.
When they run the
I don't know.
When they run the Monaco.
That's true. The Monte Carlo Rally. There's a lot of snow up in those mountains, isn't there?
Sure. It's feasible for them. I don't know.
I don't know.
Wow, we're off subject.
Yeah, but
we didn't really go off subject this show until now.
Speaking of Nazis and Monte Carlo, that makes me think of Gravity's Rainbow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gravity's Rainbow is a hell of a book about Nazis.
Yeah, when they're all at the Casino Hermann Goering. They're on the...
Not too long ago, I tried to find out exactly what happened to Monaco during World War II, and I could not find anything.
They only talking about that much.
Yeah.
Of course, there was the beginning of the movie Stalingrad, where they're basically on the French Riviera.
No, they were in Italy, I think.
Were they in Italy? I thought they were in France. I'm almost certain they were in France.
But that's
like in Nice or someplace.
But yeah, you mentioned Operation Dragoon earlier.
Yeah.
The second invasion of France, which is like, I was watching a show recently, but they were showing some archival footage, like film footage of the amphibious landing of Operation Dragoon, and I was like, I stopped and thought about it. It's like It's like the amphibious invasion of the French Riviera. It's like
sure.
you look at the crap they went through at Normandy, and it's like these dudes got to storm the beaches of like Monaco. Dude.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
right. Get that casino up and running. We
Yeah.
need to,
there's some
get the power on over
there's
in
some
that building there.
there's some American brigadier going, I'll take this casino over here as my field headquarters, and give me the penthouse of that hotel.
Yeah.
I'll take the top
Well,
3 floors.
There was that one casino in Normandy that they had heavily fortified. It wasn't a casino anymore, obviously. They had turned it into a fort.
But I thought about like an amphibious landing on the French Riviera, like,
Yeah.
and of course it was fairly soon after D-Day, so they actually learned a lot of lessons from D-Day. So Operation Dragoon went pretty smoothly.
I'm pretty sure that because the only thing I'd found said that Monaco had somewhere in like either right before World War I or right after, they just tied all their foreign affairs with France, and so I just assumed that they were occupied with Vichy too, or occupied, all at the same time. And I don't think there was really a Battle of Monaco.
No, I probably was largely untouched.
Yeah.
No, the
Had no real
real
I
thrust
think-
was all through Italy. So
Yeah, I think Monaco is technically a principality of France, but since there's no longer a royal family in France, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think technically Luxembourg might be a principality of Belgium, but technically they're separate cities or separate countries.
I think it was like
Doesn't Belgium still have a king?
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean they're separate. Those two are
Oh,
totally
okay.
separate countries.
Yeah.
Or at least it was. I don't really know.
Well,
if it still
we're
is.
nearing the end of the show, and I wanted to run down a few things that we may have not touched upon, and that's some of the subjects in movies and in books that touch upon the Fourth Reich and where you can go for further information, because we didn't have enough time tonight to discuss all the things we really wanted to talk about with the Nazis.